Hello everyone, I am Chandan from Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering. In this video, let's learn about Linux operating system. The contents we are going to learn are history of Linux, distribution, working, benefits, events leading to creation of Linux, official mascot of Linux, development, installation, design principle, components of Linux system, advantages and disadvantages, conclusion. Let us know the history of Linux. It's a popular open source operating system which was initially created by Linus Torvalds in the year 1991. At the time, Torvalds was a computer science student, began working on the Linux project as a personal endeavor. The name Linux is a combination of his first name Linus and the operating system Unix which inspired his project. At the time, most operating systems were expensive. He created an operating system which was freely available to everyone. He originally released Linux as a free software under general public license. Linux could use, modify and redistribute this source code. It was primarily used by software developers. It was become more popular and is used in various types of devices such as servers, smartphones and embedded systems. Linux is considered as the one of the most stable, secure and reliable operating system. Linux community was expanded to include thousands of developers and work on the creation on it. Linux has many distributions, namely Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch, Plasma, KDE, Mint, Manjaro, and so on. Let us know the working of Linux. Operating system similar to engine of your car. Engine can move on its own, but when connected to gearbox, axles and wheels, it becomes a functioning car. If the engine is not working properly, then rest of the car won't work. Linux was designed similar to Unix, but evolved to run on hardware ranging from phones to supercomputers. All Linux-based operating systems include a Linux kernel. The organization that can also run Linux operating system on Linux servers like kernel desktop environment. Kernel, this is actually a component of Linux system. The kernel which controls the CPU, memory, peripherals, works as a brain of the system. Operating system's kernel is at most fundamental level. Desktop environment. The user actually engages in interaction. There are numerous desktop environments available. Every desktop environment has pre-installed programs. Benefits of Linux: open source, customizability, stability and security, cost effective. Linux is open source software, which means that source code is freely available for anyone to use, modify and distribute. Linux is highly customizable and user can easily install and configure different software packages. Linux is known for stability and security. When compared to other operating systems, it is less prone to crashes and viruses. Linux is free to download and use. The events leading to creation of Linux are Unix development, Minix is born, Linux is born, release of Linux 0.01, Linux community development, enterprise adoption, Linux distribution growth, Linux in enterprise, and Linux in consumer market. Unix development. Linux was influenced by the Unix operating system, which was developed by Bell Labs in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Unix was developed as a multi-user and multitasking operating system, and then Minix is born. In the early 1980s, a computer science professor, Andrew Stenenborn, created a small Unix-like operating system called Minix. Was developed as an educational tool and source code. And then Linux is born. In the year 1991, a 21-year-old student named Linus Torvalds, who began working on a new operating system named as Linux. He also drew heavily on Unix design principle. Release of Linux 0.01. In September year 1991, Linux released the first version of its Linux called Linux 0.01. which was freely distributed on internet. Linux community development. Linux quickly gained popularity among programmers. A community of developers began to form around Linux, contributing to the development of operating system by writing code, filling bug reports, and providing feedback. Enterprise adoption. In the year late 1990s and 2000, the open source nature of Linux made it more flexible, cost effective, and more secure than proprietary operating system started being eyed by companies. Linux distribution growth. As Linux became more popular, various groups of developers began creating their own versions of the operating system, which is called as distribution. Some of the most popular distributions are Red Hat, Debian, and Ubuntu. Linux in the enterprise. With the growth of cloud computing and Internet of Things, Linux is now widely used as an operating system for servers, mainframes, and supercomputers. Linux in consumer market. Linux has also entered the consumer market with the advent of Linux-based mobile, TVs, and other consumer electronics. Official mascot of Linux. The official Linux mascot is a penguin named Tux, created by artist Larry Ewing in the year 1996. The penguin was first used as its Linux mascot for the Linux kernel. Tux quickly became popular in the Linux community and is now one of the luxurious most recognizable icons. Tux was chosen as the mascot because the penguin is a rare animal found in Antarctica. Just as Linux is a unique and powerful operating system, the name Tux comes from the short form Torvalds Unix in the honor of creator of Linux, Linus Torvald. Tux is used in a variety of contexts, including Linux operating system, logos, t-shirts, stickers, Linux-related merchandise, and even video games. Development of Linux. The Linux ecosystem is a constantly evolving and expanding platform, so there is lot of development going on. Notable recent development include Linux 5.11 kernel release, continued development of various Linux distribution, Ubuntu 21.04 release in April 2021. Development of new open source software and tools for Linux. For example, the release of version 6.0 of automation tools bring new features such as support for Windows, subsystem for Linux 2, and improved support for Kubernetes. They are becoming more and more common in deploying and managing Linux-based applications. Installation of Linux. Installing an operating system seems like a daunting task to many, but Linux is the most easiest operating system to install. In fact, most versions of Linux offers what's called a live distribution. All features are available without committing to an installation. Once you decide to use it, double-click the installation icon to run the simple installation wizard. Design principle. Linux is a multi-user, multitasking system with full set of Unix compatible tools. Its file system addresses to traditional Unix semantics and it fully implements the standard Unix networking model. Linux is designed to be compliant with Reliant POSIX document. At least two Linux distributions have achieved official POSIX certification. When PCs became more powerful and as memory and hard disk became cheaper, speed and efficiency are still important design goals. But much recent and current work on Linux was concentrated on a third major design goal. Even when same system calls are present on two different Unix systems, they don't behave exactly in the same way. Components of Linux system. Linux system has three main bodies of code. They are the kernel, the system libraries, and the system utilities. First one, the kernel. The kernel is in charge of maintaining all the vital abstractions of the operating system. The Linux kernel forms the central part of Linux operating system. It provides all the functionality compulsorily to run processes. The kernel implements every feature that is required to be eligible as an operating system. Next one, the system libraries. The system libraries describes a typical set of functions through which application can interrelate through kernel. The next one, system utilities. The system utilities are the programs that execute individual, particular and specialized managing tasks. The whole kernel code executes in privileged mode. The privileged mode in Linux is referred as kernel mode. In Linux, user mode code is not built into the kernel. This figure indicates the component of Linux system. This single address space contains not only the core scheduling and virtual memory code, but all kernel code. Even though all the kernel components share the same melting pot, there is still room for modularity. The Linux kernel forms the core of the Linux operating system. The system libraries provide many types of functionality. The libraries may also provide more complex versions of basic system calls. For example, the C language's buffered file handling functions are all implemented in system libraries. Such programs handle user login requests, incoming network connections, and printer queues. Advantages of Linux. Open source. As it is open source, its source code is easily available. Anyone having programming knowledge can customize the operating system. Everyone can contribute, modify, distribute, and enhance the code for any purpose. Security. The Linux security feature is the main reason that it is most favorable option for developers. It is not completely safe, but it is less vulnerable than others. Each application needs to authorize by the admin user. Linux system don't require any antivirus programs. Free. Certainly the biggest advantage of the Linux system is that it is free to use. We can easily download it and there is no need to buy the license for it. Lightweight. Linux is lightweight. The requirements for running Linux are much less than other operating systems. Stability. The Linux is more stable than other operating systems. It rarely hangs up or slow down. Performance. Linux system provides high performance over different networks. It is capable for handling a large number of users simultaneously. Flexibility. Linux operating system is very flexible. It can be used for desktop application, embedded system and server application. We can install only necessary components for a system. Software updates. In Linux, the software updates are in user control. We can select the required updates. These updates are much faster than operating system. Graphical user interface. Linux is a command line based OS, but it provides an interactive user interface like Windows. Privacy. Linux always takes care of user privacy as it never takes much private data from the user. Installation. Linux installation process takes less time than the other operating system. Multitasking. It is a multitasking operating system as it can run multiple tasks simultaneously. Disadvantages of Linux operating system. It is difficult to set up, install and use by no-voice users. There is no single organization responsible to provide support or updates. Hence, it is more difficult to get help during any technical issues. Few softwares may not be available for Linux. Few hardware peripherals may not be fully compatible with Linux OS. Conclusion. Linus Torvalds in the year 1991 invention of Linux was made significant. For a basic operating system for personal computers, it was developed into a popular and respected platform. Because Linux is an open source operating system, both consumer and corporation favor it because of its affordability and adaptability. In the world of technology, Linux is still a big player and its influence can be felt in many other sectors. Thank you.